Welcome to Talk Radio TV, and welcome to a very special guest, not only on Talk Radio TV, but soon to be on Talk Radio TV. He is the one and only Mr. Jeremy Kyle. Jeremy, very good afternoon to you.
Thank you, Mike. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I'm so delighted to be sitting here because what I understand, from amongst many other things that I don't know about you, is that you've hardly ever been interviewed by somebody, and I've been given the job of actually interviewing you.
How are you feeling?
Finding out, I'm feeling a little bit nervous.
No, you'll be fine.
You know, because, you know, people see you as Jeremy Kyle, the man from the Jeremy Kyle Show, but of course, you're so much more than that, and you've been so much more than that. And it's been a bit of a weird couple of years.
It has.
Tell us about it.
Well, listen, you're right. And interestingly for me, Talk Radio TV, which is a fantastic concept and the right one to come back to. Radio was where it started all those years ago, 15, 20 years before I ever got on that screen. And as a medium, I think it's fantastic. Yep. The last 2.5 years, as I'm sure are all aware, and I knew you'd ask about that, the show finished.
Yes.
After 14 years, rather suddenly. And to supersede you, and I'm just being straight, because you know I'm really excited about joining here. When I can talk about what needs to be addressed, I will do it. But for now, that's not possible. But the beauty about this media is that when I can, I will. And that's true.
But there will be lots of people who will ask us lots of questions.
Yeah, sure.
Because as you prepare to join the greatest radio station on the planet, right? And also the fastest growing one, by the way.
Quite right, too. That's why I'm coming.
At just the right time.
Thank you
because you're
very
going to turbo boost
timing.
us. Yeah, timing is everything, as you would say. But people want to know about who the real Jeremy Kyle is, because the Jeremy Kyle that they think they know, I happen to know is not the real one.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess you do a show for a long time, and are you a character? Is a lot of it you, some of it you? You know, essentially, the last 2 years have given me a chance to reflect, I think, to be honest, Bud. It was sudden. There's lots behind what happened, which, as I said, will come out. I think initially, I think I suffered from real shock.
Yeah.
I think when something becomes a routine almost every day of your life. So I remember a couple of weeks after it finished, and I'd sort of been really down, and I went to the loo at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I looked out the window, and there was a car there with a driver, and I thought, God, I'm late for work. And then I suddenly thought, that's not for me. My whole life for 14, 15 years was to the day, to the time, and suddenly that's all gone, right? You think about the people that are associated with the show, or the people that worked on the show, you have that. You know, you think, my God, what are they doing? They've got mortgages to pay, whatever. That plays on your conscience. And suddenly you're in this place where you think, God, I was just doing my job. I was working hard. I did what everybody said. And, OK, the world finishes. 15 years is a good run. I think it was the suddenness of it, Bud, that caused me to sort of... And then you get through the summer. I got through the summer. I had more kids than Boris Johnson, apparently, but I got through the summer, and then... The low point was sort of September, when they all went back to school and everybody went back to work, and suddenly the nights are getting shorter, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do today?
Because you didn't just have a job. I mean, you had a very high-profile job.
Yeah.
You were on television every day. You also filmed 4 shows in a row, right?
4 or 5 a day.
So you're talking about working, what, 12-hour days? Yeah,
12, 14-hour days on screen, and don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here saying compared to working in a factory and scraping together enough to put the food on the table for your kids. It's not hard work.
No, but what I mean is
I grafted. I worked as hard as one had to, you know.
But what I mean is to go from that to not doing anything at all.
Oh, that was... Do you know what? That was one of the biggest things. What do I do today?
Yeah.
2 years down the line, I've found there's plenty to do, you know. And I think from that sort of low point, you know, I remember looking out the window of my house and thinking, what do I do now? What? I'm 54 and I don't feel like... I don't know what to do.
Right. And you're not done.
And you feel like you're not done. You worry, are you done forever? You think, will I be able to come back? What? Everybody's shouting it. There's press on the door. There's people saying this, that and the other. You don't want to go out. Curtains are shut. People are writing this, saying that, doing whatever. And then you sort of get stuck. And I'm really... Listen, I'm just being totally straight with you. I said I would be. I have the love of an amazing woman in Vicky. And without her and without my kids... and my family, really just giving me a sense of that was the most important thing. And I'm not saying it wasn't in the past, but when you're working, whether it was in America or here, non-stop, I think you sit and you take stock. Suddenly, of course, it's Christmas, and then Vic gives birth to our son Oliver, and everything changes.
Great name, Oliver. Well, I have one called Oliver.
Do you?
Yes.
Oliver William Robin Kyle has quite literally changed my life, and my 2 boys and my 3 daughters have been a real focus. And suddenly, you know...
They're great, aren't they?
Oh,
they make you feel as though you have a purpose, actually.
Do you know, somebody once said, what would be your legacy? And I went, as a dad. If I can say that, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
He was born, and suddenly then there's a pandemic. And suddenly I'm looking out the same window thinking, Kyle, get your head out your backside. At the end of the day, you know, so you lost a job, you worked hard at, you feel sorry for a lot of people, but there's people dying.
Well, that's
and suddenly
right.
I'd had a lockdown for 6 months before we went into lockdown. So I was, I don't know.
And we're going to talk about lockdown, we're going to talk about COVID, but tell me this, the day that you found out what had happened, what was that day like?
What, that the show had gone?
Yeah.
I think you're sort of, you feel peripheral. You feel like it's not you. You're reading this stuff, you're seeing it on the television, you're hearing all these comments. I'm not stupid. We did a show for 15 years. Yes, of course it had its critics. You know that. This radio station has its critics. Yeah. You have critics, and I'll have critics when I start this radio station because we have opinions.
A lot of people hate what we do. So in many ways, you know, here we are together.
But I mean,
proving them wrong.
Well, of course, but also if you stick your head above the parapet and you're not beige, right? You think everybody's going to go, oh yeah, Mike Graham, Jeremy Kyle, they're fantastic. 50% are going to go, Mike Graham should be Prime Minister, and 50% are going to go, he shouldn't even be on this earth. So for me, it was a really reflective time. Oliver gave me a reflection, then COVID, of course, but I felt like I was better placed as that happened to sort of, I don't know, deal with it. And then, you know, my dad, who is my hero, was my hero. We lost him 6 weeks ago, and he was ill, and he was, I mean, the tragedy for him was he survived COVID in an old people's home. By the way, can I just say, sorry, people who work in care homes, I understand that we clap the NHS, and quite rightly. People in care homes are phenomenal for what they did during the COVID
Unbelievable.
outbreak. Yeah. I mean, really unbelievable.
Yeah. Under some incredibly difficult circumstances.
Mate, in Dad's care home, people would take a whole month over Christmas, not see their family, to care for people. He started falling, and I was with him. I saw him or called him every day for 2 years.
Were you able to get in to see him? Because some people
They let
weren't.
me. We were lucky, but they did something actually. They built a room with glass so he could sit the other side of the glass, and I'd be outside but inside. It was amazing. And he was strong, and he got weaker and weaker, and he started to fall, and we came out of COVID and we did a bucket list. And one of the reasons that it's talk radio for me, and one of the reasons that I've come back now, is he said to me, go back to work. Go and you've been sitting here. Yeah. I remember him saying, you've been sitting here for 2 years telling me everything you want to talk about. Go and do it. And he passed, and it was horrible, but it was also, it was a moment, really. And
you were there?
He died in my arms, and I laid him out. I did.
That must have been hard.
It was, but at the same time, I'm really proud of what I did, and I'm just being honest. I didn't do too well at the funeral, but no, I hope you know, God rest his soul. I hope he would be proud of what we did, and he had, honestly, you talk about sense of humour, and he'd be the embodiment of everything that I stand for, really. Just old-fashioned, didn't understand what woke meant.
Yes.
He said to me once, he said, isn't that what your mother used to cook noodles in? Yeah. No, not at all, Dad, no.
But this is the thing, I mean, there's a generation of people, my father was similar, probably slightly older, who died some time ago. Just unbelievable people. Let me ask you what the best piece of advice was that you were ever given by your father.
Life is full of problems. There's always a solution. It's just that the bigger the problem, the longer that it takes to find an answer. But if you get your head down, you'll get there. That's why I'm back. It just seems the right time, you know. And I've listened to this radio station. You know, I've listened to you and Julia, and I like the fact that there's a huge amount of honesty and directness, and it's about people. Yeah. It's not about window dressing.
And we encourage people to disagree with us. I mean, of course. Tell me about the day when you had to tell your partner that you were no longer a TV star.
She was with me. But Vic would say, well, and? Didn't you think, you know, that's very sad, but let's get on with life. The most practical person I've ever met in my life. What I say about Vic and I, she is the most practical person in the world. If I lose a pair of socks, I'm a nightmare, right? She's just the most amazing balance for me. We have tried to get married 5 times, but it keeps being cancelled.
Why?
Because of COVID.
You've been in battles, haven't you, over time? I mean, you had the cancer battle. You've had this battle. You're about to
Listen, 7 years, you know, the show in America went. I had cancer. I had a very horrible divorce. You know, the show.
So you're a survivor.
I lost my mum, I lost my dad. Yeah, I don't think, you know, they go... I think perspective's really important, Mike. Like I said to you earlier, it would be possible for the first few months when it all finished to feel sorry for myself. But that goes into complete perspective when the pandemic hits, doesn't it? And also, I'm really, really lucky. And I feel genuinely, I mean this, I feel very blessed to have this opportunity.
So you're not going to do the Jeremy Kyle show on Talk
No,
Radio?
no. And that's what I said.
gonna do?
Radio was my first love. And as an opportunity to talk about whatever, everything that's happening in the world, engaging people all over this wonderful country of ours, not scared to say, actually, we disagree with that, or we believe in this, or just because it's not right to say that. That's what we think. That's, for me, what makes Talk Radio unique, and that's what, for me, makes Talk Radio the absolute right place to come and come again, and really very excited about it.
Listen, the first time I heard you on the radio, it was almost an accidental experience. Because
oh, God, what does that mean?
It means that when you were at Talk Sport, as I was, I happened to listen to it on a Sunday afternoon. And I knew you as the Jeremy Kyle from television, and, you know, I didn't know you then. And I thought, this guy's great. I really enjoyed it because it was engaging. Because I think the thing about radio is that you can't be somebody else on radio. You can only be yourself.
But
you can only be yourself.
That's the absolute point, that I now, free of, you know, what one has to do when one's got a certain amount of time or this, whatever, I can talk about things. And people won't always agree with us. People might stand up and spend their lifetime in our face saying, you're wrong.
What about all of the other things that have been happening while you've been away, as it were, right?
Right.
Harry and Meghan. What have you got to say about them?
Well, you know, my old man worked for the royal family for 40
Did he?
years. Yeah, he did. He worked for the Queen Mother. He'd have been an interesting one to ask you about. I always saw her, I'm sorry if this is politically unfair or whatever, I always saw her as a sort of Z-list actress from America who was going to come over, fall in love with this obviously insecure young man, have 2 kids, go back to America and become, I don't know, famous that way. I'm amazed that the young boy who was in the military, who seemed to hold dear everything that I think is great about this country. Still, I'm a monarchist. That's the way I am. I can't, you know, I'm not going to apologise for that.
Well, we are a monarchy. Sorry,
yes, absolutely.
for those of you who don't like
it.
it.
And my biggest thing about those two is this, right? This is my biggest thing. I absolutely accept if you want nothing whatsoever to do with the royal family. You don't want any money, you don't want any civil list, you want to go and live in California, right? Don't tell us it's for privacy and then sell your soul to Netflix and Spotify for $100 million. That's ludicrous.
It really is. And
it's hypocritical.
And here's 4 more books, by the way, that we're going to
Yeah, quoted by somebody else.
But
Piers,
book,
my good mate, obviously he gave an opinion, gone.
Yeah, but also, you know, the last book they're going to write, they're going to wait for the Queen to pass on so that they can write some real stuff about the person who has been an absolute rock for this country.
Will never know.
Not for just this country, but
until she
for the
passes,
world.
I don't think the world will know how amazing this woman has been. I think she's a phenomenon. I'm disappointed in Harry. I'm not in the slightest bit shocked by her.
No.
I think he's got a real battle on his hands to ever curry favour in this country ever again. I really do.
I think he's going to struggle with that because people have really gone against him. And I think partly, as you say, you would expect an actress who was not exactly the most well-known person in the world to act like she does, from California, that's where she's from. But you don't expect him to act like that.
I wasn't surprised, but for him I was really surprised, to be honest. And I respect enormously. Listen, it's not about people saying, oh, she's not the right stock. You look at Kate Middleton. What a fantastic job that girl's done.
When she first married into the family, she was thought to be a little bit on the sort of, you know,
they joked about her family, they're upper middle class and all that. I think Kate Middleton's a shining example.
Absolutely.
I think she loves Prince William. And for me, the monarchy is in safe hands. In fact, you know, there is an argument that it should bypass Charles and go straight to William and Kate.
I think that would make a lot of sense.
But no,
and what
real
a tonic
time
that
for
would
them.
be for the country to have.
But then, of course, think about it from Charles's point of view, because I'm a royalist. You spend all your life waiting for the job that you're born to do. If you say anything, you're an interfering idiot. And if you say nothing, you're taking advantage and you don't have any reason for being.
Yeah.
I quite like the bloke, actually. I think he's obviously made mistakes, as we all have, but I think he probably deserves his time.
I quite like you, Jeremy, but I don't necessarily think you should be the next king.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, OK.
I mean, you know, with all good intentions.
I'll make you Prime Minister.
OK, then. Let's talk about him.
Shallow.
Let's talk about Boris Johnson.
Yes.
Because he's a very polarising figure.
He is a polarising figure. I always said, when I wasn't working out, I really couldn't understand how Dominic Cummings took such credit for the general election victory, which, by the way, was phenomenal. But it was based on, to me, something that was so simple. So you have this, are we going to leave Europe? And 51, somebody's going to say, 51 point, I don't care. A majority of people said we want to leave Europe. We're not having 7 more, that's what's happening. And then if you're standing for election, this is what happens. The Liberal Democrats say, well, actually, basically, we're not going to do anything that the British people have want. We're going to absolutely go against it.
Yeah.
Well, they're not going to get voted for, are they?
We know better.
The Labour Party are going to go, we haven't worked out yet, we might do this and we might do that. Boris Johnson, it's not political brilliance, went, we'll just do what the British people want, and 51% will vote for me.
Yeah.
I just wish you'd have a haircut.
Yes, and I wonder how much of all of that look, by the way, is a little bit...
I think he's a conviction politician. I'm not sure about the lack of detail and all that. I think he might be one of those politicians that's there at a time to get something done. I'd be interested to see how long he lasts for, but of course I think he's quite a political manoeuvrer, and I think he's quite
he very much is.
And Rab's in trouble now because of Afghanistan, and Patel's in trouble. It strikes me that not things falling. I think he's probably good behind the scenes.
He's very good at avoiding the bus,
yeah,
which other people seem to fall under.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's what he's good at. The big story is, as well as COVID, which we'll talk about in a second, Afghanistan. I mean, what an absolute horror show that turned out to be.
Do you know what? I'm not even going to lie. Obviously, they did what they did 20 years ago to rid the world of ISIS. And I mean, those appalling pictures. I mean, and those stories of, interpreters and people who have worked for the British and the Americans fearing for their lives. There will be people who say, well, if we didn't interfere in the world, this wouldn't happen. There will be others who say you have to do you have to do what's right.
Yeah.
Perhaps, I mean, all of those figures are shocking. Did you see that picture? I'm looking at my watch on the screen. Did you see that picture of Joe Biden?
Yes.
Looking at his watch when the 13 bodies of those American servicemen were being flown back to wherever it was in Maryland.
Dover.
I honestly think that this... listen, I think he'll be gone by Christmas.
I think he's dreadful, and I think a lot of people looked at that and just thought, how could you? I mean...
Does the Donald run again?
The Donald will be back. I'm pretty sure of that, and I would like to see that.
I just, honestly, that fascinates me. When people, and I'm not a Donald Trump fan, I'm not a Joe Biden fan, right? I'm not nailing my colours on any mast, but we should never forget in the last US presidential election, this should tell you something about Americans, 75 million people, that's more than the people in this entire country voted for Donald.
It's quite unusual to get that many votes and still lose.
Yeah, no comment.
You've got children, you've said.
Yes.
One of the big bugbears for me is the vaccination rollout, how it went from being something that would rescue us from COVID for the vulnerable people, for the over 60s, but then the over 50s, then the over 40s. Now they're talking about vaccinating your 12-year-old. What do you say about that?
I think the message from the government should be that if you're double vaccinated, you might get it, but you're not going to die from it. That's a fact in terms of numbers. I know people who... I mean, I'm double vaccinated. I know people who refuse to have it still. I don't understand. I'm just being straight with you. If 1 million people in the world have died, why would you not have the vaccination? Well, but then I've never understood. My son, actually, this is very interesting. My son, Henry, is 12 years and so 12 and a half. So at 12 and a half, he doesn't have to wear a mask. But a day later when he's 13 or between 11 and 12, he does. So at what point? But I'm still confused about if I go into a restaurant.
Yes.
I was at a restaurant the weekend. You wear a mask to go and you sit down at the table, you take your mask off. So at what point between the door and the table can you...
Well, you know what? I don't go to restaurants and do that.
You don't wear a mask?
No.
Have you not worn a mask at all?
Oh, no, I did. I wore it until they said it was no longer a legal requirement. And then I would only wear it...
Are you double jabbed?
I'm not going to tell you that because I don't believe I should give away my personal medical information. So,
well, fair enough. Well, you've made me give it away. I'm double jabbed.
Yeah, but I'm very good at interviewing people.
All right, well, I'm not.
I mean, that's fine. You can say it. A lot of people don't mind saying it. I don't wish to give that information away. This is the great joy of what we do. You don't have to
disagree with me.
You don't
disagree with me. Come on, say why you disagree. I've got an opinion. You've got an opinion. We might agree. We might disagree. Is that not the essence of democracy?
It absolutely is.
That's why this is.
And that's one of the things that worries me the most, actually, about what's happened in the time when you've been away. And this is why I'm happy to welcome you back to the fight, because in the end, we've developed a culture where you are shouted down, a culture where an MP was writing stories in newspapers, basically naming and shaming people that he thought were, in his words, COVID deniers, who were simply people like me, like Julie Hartley-Brewer, who were asking questions. Apparently now they don't like it if you ask a question.
Yeah, but if you don't... Look, you can ask a question about anything, can't you? It's the people that don't ask the questions that annoy me. That's why I said to you about voting. That's your right. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, in a democracy, you should be able to do and say, well, not do, you should be able to ask and say what you want. If you don't like the response, you then throw your toys out the pram. That's what I said. Listen, I've been cancelled.
Yeah.
In this world, it seems now that unless you follow a certain path, you're labelled.
Yes. And I know...
And we will fight. You have to fight back because this is what I think. I don't know what you think. But Julia and you and people like me, and we wouldn't be here doing this unless the people out there were watching and listening to this who actually agree. And maybe in time they'll raise their heads above the parapet.
Yeah. And I think with Talk Radio and the way that we operate, that is what they've got used to now. And this is the only place where they can come to do that. So tell your listeners and potential viewers what they can expect from your show.
Listen, just honesty. Debate, whatever. A roller coaster. At the end of the day, you know, whatever you want to talk about, whatever... When you say to people, I want your opinion. Oh, but what if you disagree? I don't care if I disagree, but then listen to my opinion. Talk Radio, as you quite rightly said, is a platform for people to be invested in debate, honesty, openness, and that's what we'll do. And you know, people will go, yeah, but that's the bloke that shouted a lot. That was a television show. This is a radio show that will be about the people who listen to it and watch it. But people like you and I will have a strong opinion. Doesn't make us right the whole time, does it? How naive would you be to go, oh, I'm always right 100% of the time?
I say I'm always right 100%
Yeah, but you're not, are you?
But, well, that depends on who you ask.
You're not right the whole time.
I can't remember the last time I was wrong, Jeremy.
Really?
No.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
You've never been wrong?
I didn't say that. I can't remember the last time I was wrong.
You're very quick.
Thank you.
I just think that we run the risk of becoming a society of people who find labels, who moan a little bit too much. Of course we should moan about things, but there's just this sort of... whether it's blame or counsel or whinge or bitch culture that we now live in. And I just think, come on, come on, find a positive.
Let's talk some more about what your plans are, because obviously there are going to be some great things happening at Talk Radio.
Really looking forward to it.
And are you able to tell us when you're going to be joining?
So we're going to start on, absolutely, buddy, on the 13th of September.
Between 4 and 7.
Monday
very
to
popular
Thursday.
time.
What, 4 to 7?
Yeah, very
when
popular
are you
time. I'm on from 10 to 1.
Well, that's even more popular.
Yeah, but I can big you up, you see, before you come every day.
You can fluff me.
I can do that. I can do.
You said that.
I can prepare them for you.
Oh my Lord! No,
it's
listen. On a serious note, for me, Talk Radio is just the most perfect project, and I'm so excited to be working with you all, and so excited to come here and be able to talk about stuff that matters to me, that's mattered to me for a long, long time. I'm so excited about it, mate, and thank you, and I mean that. It's a pleasure. Top man.
Jeremy Kyle, welcome to Talk Radio. What a fantastic addition to an already brilliant team. Jeremy will be here with us quicker than you could say anything, really. And you better be quick to say anything against him, because he's going to be inviting your calls, he's going to be inviting your views, and he's going to be brilliant. This is Talk Radio.